Well, good morning, everyone. Oh, thank you, Johnny. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here. So last week we had something going on last week. I don't remember what it was. But because of that, we were unable to do. Typically, after we have SEP, we always the week after have kind of like an SEP report where the people that went, they come back and we like talk and share about our experiences. And so because we had something small happening last week, we weren't able to do it. And so we want to do it this week. And so we're going to have, there's only 3 of us here, or I guess 4 including me. But I'll be giving the sermon, so I'm just going to tie it all together. We're going to have 3 speakers, Regina, then David, and then Camille. And they're just going to be sharing how SEP was for them. Each one has a completely different perspective. And we're going to give them the time to speak so we can hear about it, and then I'll share my account on it, and we'll lead into the sermon. And so we can have Regina come on up first.
Well, hello all again. I got kind of jumbled up. Hello to all of you again. It's so good to be with you. So, about 2 weeks ago now, we went to a summer camp, which much of you know because your donations that go to this church help support some of the scholarships for this camp that help bring some of the kids to this camp. We had Camille and we had Justin, and I just want to tell you, just from my perspective of just kind of being like a fly on the wall at camp, just to see how amazing it is, and I want to report to you all because I just want to let you know that your prayers that you prayed for us while we were all at camp, any funds that have gone to camp from the church, that they don't go to waste, that it is such a meaningful and powerful week. And so I just want to tell you how this camp is so powerful and what it is specifically to these kids. So it is a week of encouragement, and I think that it's a week really like no other, where you don't find people who are quite as encouraging as you do at camp. The kids feel like they can be like themselves at camp. I know some campers have told me, at school I kind of put on a mask and I don't feel like I can be myself, but at camp I feel like I'm my truest self. And this camp, just to kind of show you that encouraging spirit that these kids have for each other. You'll see them do like a variety show throughout the weekend camp. We have one night dedicated where the kids get to kind of share their talents. And let me tell you, even if the kids like forget a lyric, or even if they stumble, you'll see people just cheer them, be like, I love you, you can do it, you got this. And I think that in public school, or really for any school for that matter, you don't always find that. So this is just such an uplifting week, such a powerful week where kids get to encounter Jesus, where they get to encounter love from people, to feel accepted. And one of the things that I personally felt so passionate about was the fact that we had quite a few foster kids attend the camp as well. So it's not a camp that is only for one certain type of kid. It's for any type of kid. And really, I know for SEP's heart is that they just want to pour into kids, that they're a very healthfully funded camp. And really the only thing that they are lacking in sometimes is sending more kids. Really whatever we do with the amount of kids that we have, it gets poured into them so well. But I just want to say it's kind of like a little promotional sort of thing for them. It's just that there's really no reason why any kid, if you know any nieces or nephews, or any, second little cousins or something like that, just any extended family who would benefit from this type of camp, that's usually the kind of experience that only wealthy kids would get to experience. They make it so attainable, and it's such a beautiful experience. So I just want to say again, just that there's really no reason that anyone shouldn't attend this amazing week. And I just want to thank you all for your prayers while we were gone. Thank you.
I have nothing to add. She said it all. It's such a good camp. She's talking about how everyone should go there, and I was one of those kids. I've been there. This year was my 16th year coming to SEP. That's a lot of times going to SEP, and when you go to a place that often, it's like such a part of you, and when it's a week that's so powerful as it is, a lot of who I am has been molded by the way SEP has made me a person. It's taught me a lot of important lessons. It's taught me how to grow as a Christian in this world, and So what I was in charge of this year, as I am with most years, is the dance. So I teach people how to do swing dancing. I teach some salsa dancing and line dances. I teach even a little bit of hip hop dances just for fun. And then one of the nights we have, for the senior camp, we have a dance, and we do all the swing dances, all the things we learn, all the line dancing. So Camille's nodding her head, she had fun. It's a really nice experience, and she's talking, Virginia was mentioning how this type of camp, this camp is very, it's like a light in such a dark world, and that type of experience that we're giving them with swing dancing, it's partner dancing, it's a lot of fun, but it's very clean, I guess you could say, because in this world, you guys all know, the world is just getting worse and worse and dirtier, and so this is like that way of showing that we can have fun, and we can love Jesus and do all this, but have a great time at the same time. This is something that most of the world doesn't really understand. And so when you bring in these kids that are from such tough neighborhoods, or kids that are from families that are not loving for them, and you bring them into a place where everyone's encouraging each other, and everyone's being kind, and helping each other out, and giving words of affirmation, and talking about their lives and the struggles in their lives, and being a support to each other, and praying for each other, and singing with each other, and doing fun activities with each other. It's just a really good place for these kids to go. And you guys have been hearing the same testimonies after SEP for years now. And back when Tierra and Malik and Marcus and Joshua and Cheyenne were all going there too, it makes such a big difference in our lives. So we really appreciate you guys always praying for us and giving the offerings that are helping support these kids go there. So this is just a praise report. Thank you so much again, always, for letting us come to SEP and helping us out with the prayers. So it went really well, and I hope to hear more about it from the rest.
Hello. I actually came prepared this year. Well, this will be my 5th year at SCP, 3rd year as a senior, and my first without Chanel. Well, going based off what they were saying about camp being a place where you can be yourself and all the friends and love that's with everyone, it's not just that, it's also what they teach you there. This year our theme was all in, going all in with our heart, soul, strength, and mind. And the chapels that they taught us, they impacted me more than I could say everything, because that's way too much. Basically what they explained over the week was that since God went all in for us, He gave His life for us so we can live today. Why don't we go all in for Him? The first lesson, the first chapel was the heart. In the heart, they talked about what makes us alive. And what was explained is that sometimes we can take agape, a word that was created to describe God's love, and we confuse it with conditional love, which we can't do that because it's not the same thing at all. He also told us that he sensed that when he was teaching us that he sensed a lot of brokenness in the room, and that we all have value. And even though we have we have baggage in our lives, so much mess going on, that we're worth something. What he did is he took a $20 bill, he crumbled it up, stepped on it, threw it around, and then he picked it back up and he asked us, who still wants this $20 bill? Every single person raised their hand because money is money. Who doesn't want free money? But that was to get his point across, that we're still worth something, even with all the brokenness. Our next chapel was the soul, the real you. Walking into Shiloh, it was a bit spooky, and it made me a little uncomfortable because it looked like an ancient shrine straight out of Indiana Jones. There was chairs in a circle, and it was dimly lit.
there were buckets of water in the middle of each circle, and they gave you a rock that you wrote something you want to let go of, and you throw it in there and you give it to God. Something, if I may, I can share what I wrote. When I was a kid, well, still, I have a half brother. I have a half brother that I'm not close to. I wish I was, and it's bothered me ever since I was a little girl. And so what I did is I wrote that on my rock, and with a lot of hesitation, because there was a lot to let go of, I finally threw it into the pond, a bucket of water, and I felt lighter. It was subtle. It wasn't like some big 25-pound weight being lifted off. It was really subtle and small, but I noticed it. And I can tell that it worked because if this were now, I would be crying talking about him. But that was probably my favorite sermon because it made me face and become aware of the walls that I have placed to protect myself from the world, and but those walls stop me from going all in with God and my soul. And then the next chapel that we learned was taught by Ruth, and she taught mine. Not only was I interested because I wanted to I might become a psychologist as a career, but also it's very relatable when I could understand what she was saying. The most impactful thing in her message was the power of yet, and how it pushes you to improve on your skills instead of stopping yourself by saying, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Like you say, oh, I can't draw that. You say, I can't draw that yet. It gives you room to improve, which she explained was a growth mindset, and which puts in play neuroplasticity, which is your brain remolding itself to your new habit. I never knew a three-letter word could hold that much power, which brings us to strength, which is my second favorite because it involved you actually getting up 5 in the morning, walking a far ways away from my dorm, from my bed, to a rock, and sat there for 15-20 minutes waiting for the sunrise, all the while we were making Lion King jokes. But I love how it all played and how well planned it was, and how it all played that God gives us the strength, gives us the breath to get up every day and do what He calls us to do. And at the end of the sermon, when He explained all of this, there was a drum circle. Good job on that, David. It was nice. They were chanting heart, soul, mind, strength. And that, honestly, if I could, I'd have a drum circle every morning, because that is a good way to start your morning. It was so empowering, and it helped me walk back down that path again and go eat. And so, those were before, and I forgot to mention one, neighbor. That was the last sermon of that week. And what you're basically talking about is, when you were a kid, you always heard, love thy neighbor, love the person as you would love yourself. The main verse of that day, I have it here, in Matthew 22:37-40, it says, Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. As all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Saying love God, love yourself, love your neighbor. What was explained is that we're trying to do the second commandment before we do the first. You cannot love yourself and your neighbor fully without loving God, because He made love, so you can't use love properly without God in it. This year was the most different year. There's a lot of things changed, but honestly, what I can say, I say it every year, that it really moved me. But I'm being serious and I'm being very honest this time. this year, I actually let go of some of these walls that stopped me from really loving and giving myself to God. I haven't gotten rid of all of them because it's a lot and I haven't gotten there yet. So I'm kind of just in a place, but I've actually gotten closer to God. And when I left SCP, I didn't just go back to the place I was. I actually stayed where I am now, and I feel a much bigger or a strong connection with God.
Well, I don't need to give a sermon. Thank you, Camille. That was fantastic. We got the next pastor on our hands. Amen. So for me, this year at SCP, it was different because all prior years I was a counselor. And this year, and what I presume will be every following year, I will be the chaplain. And what the chaplain does is, for all the issues that come up during camp, since camp is a very safe place, and there's definitely a lot of moments where there's vulnerability that comes out in the midst of conversation, where people feel safe to say things that have been on their heart, on their mind. And so people say vulnerable things, and if there's a point in time where they say something that's a little too much for the counselor or for their dorm to handle, they bring it to the chaplain. And so that was my role this year, in conjunction with the other chaplains. There's not just one, thankfully. And in being a chaplain, I got to see, one, that it's such an honor to have this position. It's an honor to be able to meet people, not in the midst of their life, but more it's like meeting these kids at kind of like the front door of their life. Because I obviously don't have the position to be like, oh, I'm going to suddenly be involved in your life even though you live in Minnesota. Of course not. And so I'm just encountering these kids at the front door of their life, and they allow me to just take a step inward while they share these pains, these hurts, these realities that they have to face. And it can be very heartbreaking to see when you hear these stories of these kids and you think, how could an adult treat a child this way? How could someone hurt a kid in this way in good conscience? Or how could they live with themselves after doing such horrible things? And in one regard, it's heartbreaking, and in another, it's an honor to be allowed to know these things, to be allowed to pray for these young women and young men, and to be able to, in some way, share the love, the unbroken, the full, whole love of Christ with them. As we know, Christ, unlike our physical parents, our Heavenly Father, He will never betray us. He will never hurt us. He will never do anything to leave us broken. But we know that in our world, even if we had amazing, great parents, they're still broken people. And in us, they will still cause brokenness. And that is okay. We're not bound, we're not meant to be our parent's child forever. I remember once I had a conversation with this a mentor of mine, and it was a very interesting thought that had never occurred to me when he's talking about having children, and that was the conversation. And he said how it can be hard after you have a kid to realize that once you give birth to them, they're not truly yours, that they're God's, and you're just trying to raise them and lift them and let them go to God, let them be able to encounter who their true parent is, who their true lover of their soul is. And that's just what a glimpse of what I could see in this arena of being a chaplain. And so it was an honor to be able to be a chaplain this year, and I look forward to being able to do it all the following years, as well as on the lighter side of things of being a chaplain. It was an honor to be able to go around between dorms and interact with them, because normally as a counselor you're bound to your dorm. You need to take care of them, make sure they don't die during the week. And so it's an honor being able to hang out with all the dorms and see how all the counselors are handling everything, how they're faring, how the kids in each dorm are doing. And so it's amazing. And I want to, again, just as Regina and David posted, I want to thank all of you for your participation, because really when it comes down to ministry as a whole, not everyone is called to every part of ministry. How Mark and Ann like to put it, for those who are counselors, they say they're in the trenches with these kids, because it's like you're waking up 6 a.m. and for those of you that have had kids, you know how easy it is to get kids up and get them awake. Never a hassle, not once. And so you get them awake and you're with them until you go to sleep in the same dorm as them at like midnight. And so it's just a full day of stuff with teenagers yelling, being teenagers. I mean, you need to explain it. And so for the counselors, it's an amazing week, absolutely, yes. And it's not a but. And it's also very exhausting. One of the most taxing, physically taxing weeks that you could probably have. And so, not everyone is called to be a counselor. And that's okay. Some people are called to just give financially. Some people are called just for prayer. Just as not everyone is called to be a missionary that goes off into a war-stricken land and have to fight for their dinner every single night. Not everyone is called to that. There's a person and place for all different kinds of ministry, just as not everyone is called to be a senior pastor in a church. Not everyone is called to be a worship leader, but we can still participate, and it's just as important as being the person in the trenches, being the person that prays for them, being the person that supports them. As SEP can't happen without money. That's just fact. And that's good, because all of us have a role. And so I want to thank all of you for your participation in SEP this year, because it could not have happened without every single one of you participating in the way you did. So thank you all for making this SEP possible this year. Now as I move on to the sermon, what I want to talk about is largely what Camille talked about, which is very nice. She set a nice framework, and he did a very good job in encapsulating what SEP was this year. The theme was All In. And the idea, this was actually developed by, I know most of you know him, Jeff Rockmax. And this was developed by Jeff. And the idea was, we use an analogy of poker. I'm sure everyone here in some way knows or is familiar with poker. And the idea is, you have all these chips, and you're going to place a bet. You can say, I'm going all in. You push this big old stack of chips, assuming you have a big old stack of chips. You push it forward and you say, I'm all in. And in poker, that is the time where you are most vulnerable, because you could lose it all. And a lot of times, a lot of people do lose it all. If it were more common, it would be a career path to go into poker. And at the same time, you're the most vulnerable, but you also have the most opportunity to win. You have the most opportunity. You're at your peak for what you could mass after going all in. And so the idea was, for us, in our humanity, we're going all in with Christ. We're going all in with God. Except, one caveat, we can't lose. When we go in with Christ, there's nothing we can lose. We will always win when we go in with Christ, no matter what we do. And so it's a win-win. It's not, I can't even call it a bet. You're just going all in and you win right there. You start off at a win, and when you die, oh, you win again. Oh, and then you just win for eternity. And so that's the notion of going all in with Christ. And one of the verses they used to start this off was John 3:16-17, a verse that we all know. But I liked on occasion, there are different translations that we use. I personally, there are times where I like the Message. I know I've used that here a handful of times, because there's some times where it just really hits the point home very strongly. Sometimes it kind of misses it, but in this section they use The Voice, a newer translation, which is just a more modern translation, and I want to read from that. And so it says, "For God expressed his love for the world in this way. He gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him will not face everlasting destruction, but will have everlasting life. Here's the point. God didn't send his Son into the world to judge it. Instead, he is here to rescue a world headed towards certain destruction. And so, as Camille was saying, God went all in for humanity. He didn't just kind of like dip a toe and just be like, you know what, humanity, you're really ugly. You've done some really bad stuff. Let's give you a part of me, and that's good enough. No, he went all in. He became one of us, and he became susceptible to death itself for the sake of humanity, for the sake of us. And the analogy that I personally always like when I hear it said is that if throughout all time, if I, Anthony Walton, or if you, Johnny Stevens, or if you, Juanita Johnson, or you, Marion, or Pastor Berman, if we were the only person in existence, Christ would have done what he did, just for us. He would have went through all of the torture. He would have went through all of the shame. He would have went through all of the hurt and pain, just for us, even if no one existed. He went all in for humanity. He went all in totally with his heart, with his soul, with his mind, with his body. He did it for the sake of his neighbor, for his younger sibling in Christ, for you and me. And so that was the core of the theme this year. And our core scripture wasn't that, actually. It was Mark 12, verses 28 through 31. And so this is where Christ is in a temple. And adding a little context to this, when Christ encountered Pharisees, whenever he encountered someone who wanted to challenge him, in this case, when they were asking him, what's the greatest and most important commandment? In this context, a lot of people tend to confuse and think like, oh yeah, it's one of the 10 commandments, right? Which one's the best? But I don't remember seeing love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind in the 10 commandments. And I've heard people get confused with that, but in Jewish culture, they had hundreds of laws, over 500 things, very specific. It got very legal in the things that you had to do to be a good follower of God at the time. And so in this, they wanted to trip him up because there's a whole bunch of things that could overlap, things that could contradict each other, a whole bunch of things that it's like, there's no way this dude knows 500 some laws and can name the one that's best because we can trip him up. We study this for a living. And so that was the context in this moment. It wasn't just like, oh, here's the 10 commandments. Which one's the best? It's probably don't murder. No, it's not that. This is them trying, and it was a legitimate attempt to try to trip someone up. If he was a normal person, if he was just some dude, 500 laws to go through, on just the top of your head, you can't think of that. And so that was this. And so in this list was love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And so that's the context for this. So Mark 12, verse 28. It says, one of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked them, of all the commandments, the 500 some commandments, which is the most important? The most important one, answered Jesus, is this. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this. Love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. And so that was the core of going all in. Loving the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and loving your neighbor as yourself. And that's what all in represented, with all of those various aspects of our being. And so, as Camille talked about, the entire week was broken up into 5 major chapels. They broke up the theme of all in into 5 things, and each one was a part of this verse. And so it was the heart, soul, mind, strength, and neighbor. And when this happens, I've gone to seminars and I've read books and I've seen videos, and there's a handful of times where there's like an inspirational speaker and they say something that's just so intangible. They're like, okay, so make sure you get closer to God. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? Do you have any steps? I'm like, how do I just love God? Do I say, God, like, I love you, God, I'm getting closer to you right now. They give no practical steps, and it's hard to grasp something that just seems so intangible. And so these entire chapels were meant to be tangible things, especially for teenagers. Tangible things that they can utilize in their everyday when they leave camp to be able to love God in these various ways. And I'm a strong advocate and a firm advocate that regardless of your age, all of these are still applicable. Because when it comes to the very core message of the gospel of Christ died for us, and we're commanded to love him. That's the first thing, love God. All of us are always learning. There's not one person that says, like, I got it down. I love God the most. He is my favorite. I've mastered this. There's no one that can say that. There's no adult, no matter how old you get, no matter how many doctorates you might accumulate in your life, no one can say, oh, I've got the recipe down. I can do this. I've got it. I'm done with you, God. I'm moving on to the next thing. There's no one that can do that. Well, maybe some cult leaders can do that. And so, the first one was loving God with all of your heart. And the question that is always asked in all of these is, what does that look like? What can we do to love God with all of our heart? What does that mean to love God with all of your heart? And each one of these, there's a good little sermon. There's pretty much a sermon attached to this. And I'm not going to give you the full sermon for each one, but I want to leave all of us here with these questions and with these tools for our own personal growth, because these are all, after going through them during SCP, I was like, these are all things that I, Anthony, regardless of my title, regardless of my education, I can always use these. I can always utilize the various resources that they gave, and I believe all of us here should take this to heart. Even if it was intended for teenagers, we should all be in a place where we're humble enough to admit, like, hey, I can still learn. I'm always learning. God is always teaching me. And I believe this is a tool for all of us, and good questions for us to ask ourselves in our own relationship that we have with God. And so the first chapter was heart. And with this, the entire meaning behind this was just our feelings and our heart. And how do we go all in with our joys? How do we go in with our sorrows? How do we go in with the things that build us up and break us down? How do we go to God with that? Because I know in my own walk, there have definitely been times, and I might be the only one, but there have definitely been times where it's just like, even though he has never given you a reason to, there are parts of us that say, like, God, I don't know if I trust you with this part of my heart. I don't know if I'm the only one that's ever thought that, where it's like, you're scared to give something to him. Kind of like what Camille was saying, what was happening with her and her half-brother. There's parts of us that we're just scared to give up to God. It's like, God, I had this pain in my past, and I don't trust you to handle my heart, handle my pain just yet. I need some time. And God is okay with that. We know our God is patient with us. And so this entire session was about being able to go all in with that. It's kind of like when you see a little kid. They're very transparent with what they're feeling. It's rare for kids to have complex feelings and complex thoughts that they can just completely hide and completely just beguile us with their wit and their thoughts. So like, oh no, Dad, no, I'm completely fine. Look at my composure. I'm 4 years old. That's not how kids are. And when we look at God to us, regardless of our age, that's how we appear to him. We try to hide our hurts. We try to hide our pains. We try to hide who we are, but he sees right through us. And he's okay with us taking our time to trust him. He's trustworthy. We know that. But still something in our heart is reluctant when we come to God and we say, I need to get this thing off my chest, but I'm just scared to say it to you. For some reason, it's just the humanity within us. And so that was the first chapel. And with all of these chapels was attached a discipline. And for this discipline was the discipline of prayer. Because in essence, at the very core, the crux of prayer, it's a conversation. We're just talking with God. If you take out all of the fancy ye's and thou's and arts and all the fancy theological terms that you might like to show off in front of people when you're praying in public, it's a conversation. You're just talking to him. And when you talk to people, that's when you grow closer to them. That's when you get more comfortable with sharing your heart to them. And so that's what was encouraged to lay down that foundation, because that is one of the foundations of our relationship with God is conversation, is talking to him, is sharing our heart to him. And so that was the first one. And so for all of us, I encourage all of you to contemplate on these, contemplate on that, and how we go all in with our heart to God. The second was going all in with our soul, and that one was similar to going in with our heart but a little bit different, because in this one, it goes to a deeper level than just our immediate reactions, our immediate pains, our immediate feelings to things. And it goes to who we are uniquely as a child of God, who we are as His amazing creation. And for this one, the discipline for this was meditation, silence, and solitude, and being honest and being able to hear God speak to us, speak to our soul, because that's something that for all of us, I think we can get caught up in life very often, and we can find ourselves being too busy to just sit and be still and know that God is God. And for Him to be able to speak and pour into our soul, our innermost being, and for Him to tell us who we are, who He created us to be. And so in that one, it's a moment of solitude. And that was the one that Camille talked about with this station they had where you could write something on a rock and drop it in this little pool. That was that with our soul. And so for all of us, meditation is the meditation, silence, contemplation, solitude, all of those are spiritual practice for your soul. The third one is mind. And this one I think is always relevant because for all of us, there is always things that we ingest. When we ingest things physically, if we only eat McDonald's every single day for 3 years, you're probably not going to be the buffest person, the most fit person in the world, right? And the same goes for things in our mind. If we ingest garbage, if we ingest media that is just hateful, if we ingest media that just pollutes our mind, if we ingest media, whether it be music, whether it be movies, whether it be like YouTube videos, whether it be just things that we hear online, whatever it might be, things we read in magazines, things we see on our phone, whatever it might be, the more regularly we ingest that, the more unhealthy our mind gets, and the more then unhealthy our speech and our mindset gets, because we start, the more we ingest something, the more likely it is to come out of our mouth. And so in this, what they're encouraging, or what the discipline for this was, Bible reading, Bible study, filling our mind with things that are good, things that are of God, and fasting, not just from food, but from media. Whatever media impacts you the most, whichever one you ingest the most. It could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, it could be Snapchat, it could be just watching the news every single day. We know how uplifting the news is every day. And so, for mind, that one's very applicable, especially in today's world as technology becomes more and more prevalent, as the readiness of media becomes more readily available to us, how we can find anything in the midst of wherever we are. Nowadays, when I have my phone, I can find anything I want on my phone. Once upon a time, I had to go back home, go into AOL, log in, have horrible internet, take like 20 minutes to load a page, and it took longer to ingest information. But now, you can ingest more information than ever in human history. At this point in time, 2018, we get more information than we ever could before. And that comes with this trade-offs of us ingesting negative things that can impact us. And so for that, we fast from it. From that, we fill our minds with things that are good, reading the Bible. And so that was the third chapel. The fourth chapel is probably Camille's favorite, is where we had to, as the counselors, had to wake up around 4:30 to wake up our kids at 5 a.m. And we took them for this nice 15-minute hike up to this rock where we worshiped together. We were able to encounter God using our strength. And strength doesn't always mean our physical prowess. It doesn't mean how ripped you are, how buff you are. It doesn't mean how strong you physically are. But it more refers to our discipline. It refers to our capacity to endure through things. Because there are times where God calls us to something. He could call us to encounter a friend of ours that is having just a crisis in their life. At 10 p.m. and they call you up. You just got off of work. You are so tired. You're ready for bed. You're having kind of a nightcap maybe. And you are just ready to be done for the day. They call you up and they say, hey, could we go out, get some coffee and talk just for like 30 minutes? That's a time where it tests you physically. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm the most physically strong person in the world. I could do 50 reps of 500 pounds or something, but it tests our endurance, it tests our discipline, it tests our strength, and how we can love in the midst of us feeling weak, in the midst of us feeling tired. And so the discipline for that was service and hospitality and just being able to love people in the midst of our tiredness, regardless of where we're at, regardless of how we're feeling in that moment, regardless of our energy level, being able to push past that. And of course, take that with reason. You don't want to get yourself sick. You don't want to injure yourself doing this. But to know that we have limits that we can go past a bit. The final one is how we can go all in with loving our neighbor, as that is the second most important commandment. And the biggest thing with this, as this is spoken a lot, is how do we love someone who is hard to love? I think we all know people that are a little hard to love and a little hard to like at times. And how do we love those people? And trying to clear up this thing that I think is an unfortunate culture that happens in the church, I use it with a big C, the church as a whole, that we tend to idolize missionaries. We tend to think that they are the end-all, be-all, they're the best form of a Christian, is someone who goes to Africa and goes and helps someone who is in a hut and feeds them and then leaves right after. That's not what we're all called to. Oftentimes, for most of us, I want to say, we're called just to our immediate family. I know not all of us here are close to our family. Not all of us have this like super strong bond with our family, with our friends, with the neighbors around us. If you want to be a missionary, you can just walk right next door, knock on the door, and have a conversation with them. That's being missional. That's being a missionary to those who haven't encountered Christ possibly in their life. And being a missionary isn't always things that are glamorous. They're not always things that are things that you can package and sell, where you say like, oh, we have this person going to this country. It's something that you can tell people and sell. But if you say like, oh, I've been meeting with this guy for the past like 2 years, go out and get something to eat every Thursday night. That's not something that's super attractive. That's not something where it's like this whole romanticized thing. It's like, no, I talked to this guy and we just hang out. And a lot of the times we don't have special conversation since they're not always going through a crisis. And that's okay. We're called to encounter people wherever they're at in their life. And sometimes they're not at a place where they're at crisis. And that's okay. Christ still loves us regardless of where we're at in our life. And we're called to love others where they're at. And there will be times where there are crises. There will be times where people are going through hard things that stretch you. There will be times where people are going through things where they're at their wit's end and they're just at this place where they're a wreck. That's reality. And so all of those things are a part of loving your neighbor, whether it's something easy, because there are going to be easy times. Your friends that you have, every time you see them, it's not always a crisis where they're running out of money and they're on the verge of death. And there are times where it is going to be an emergency. And so loving them regardless of the rhyme or reason. And how this was all wrapped up is in the thought that when we go through all these chapters, it seems like these are individualistic, where it's like, oh, I need to love God only with my strength, only with my soul, only with my mind. But the reality is, for the four of them, the heart, soul, mind, body, heart, soul, mind, and body, those are all wrapped up in one. We are not just our mind, we're not just our soul, we're not just our strength, we're a culmination of all of us. And we're called to love God with all of them, all the time. And so for all of these various disciplines, I encourage all of us to look through them, because some of them might speak to us more than others. Some of us might need more discipline in the things that we ingest in terms of media. Some of us might need more solitude with God, whichever one speaks to you more. That's the one I encourage you to go out and practice, because all of these God gave to us when we were born. He gave us a mind. He gave us a soul. He gave us the power to use our physical strength to do a variety of things. And when we use all this, just as Camille said, always referring back there, I told you, she gave the sermon, we can't do the second without doing the first. We can't love our neighbor. We can't love those around us until we know who loved us first. We We can't love those around us until we understand that God loves us, that he went all in for us, that we can embrace that we can understand and believe that, hey God, you love me and you like me. And so we have to be able to embrace that before we can even begin to do the second, because if we start loving people just out of our own reserves, we start acting out of our own reserves, we're going to get burnt out. And in that process, we're going to hurt someone. And so we always start at the source of all love, of all strength, God. And that was SEP this year. Those are the things that we focused on this year for all of us here again. I encourage you for the various disciplines that I went through to pray on these, to dwell on these, see what is it that God wants you to go all in your life, to see what God wants you to do in your life, because we all have different relationships. We all have different weaknesses. We all have different strengths. We all have different things that God sees in us and wants to call out and bring up and raise up and strengthen up. And so for all of that, I give you all that task this week to pray on that, to dwell on this, to take this seriously, as this is not just something that teenagers can use. Teenagers aren't the only one that need prayer. They're not the only one that need to fast from things. They're not the only ones that need to be silent. And so for all of us, how are you going all in? Amen? Amen.